Okay, well, let's go ahead and get started. I appreciate you folks joining us. We wanted to have an opportunity to chat with each of the committee chairs as a board. We are working this year to get back to where the committees are having a very active role in representing the membership to the board. This is something that has varied over the years, as I understand it, and we're coming out of kind of a quiet time for the committees. Very pleased with how the committees are working so far and interested in what you all have to say as you do your self-introductions. We'd like you to give us a brief description of your committee. This is on behalf of all the other committees. I wish there were more here. Let us know what you're currently working on, your upcoming plans, and most importantly, any questions or issues you have for us. And we will be dealing with those when we get down to agenda item number 3. After we have our self-introductions, we want to go over the committee guidelines and the policy procedures review, because we did make some updates to that policy. I think you're all aware. That was all in the spirit of trying to clarify the role that the committees have and make them an effective part of the data gathering and decision-making process that we have for our POA. And then after that, we'll talk about any questions or comments that come up about our charters for committees, and then any other comments that you have. So that's our agenda. So I'd like to get started with a brief description of the committees. Who would like to go first?
I'll go first.
Okay, Doug.
All right. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Doug Schultz, Chairman of the Appeals Committee. The Appeals Committee membership is composed of 5 members and 1 alternate. Our hearing services specialist is Mary Ziegler, and our current board liaison is Joe Kamasian. I have been on this committee for 6 years. Before coronavirus, we met once a month in person at the lodge and conducted hearings for 4 to 5 hours. After a 3-month hiatus because of COVID, we resumed committee in-person meetings at the POA conference room with member telephonic hearings, and recently switched to committee in-person meetings at the POA conference room with member Zoom hearings. Once we resumed the hearings in June, the committee met every Monday for 3 months in order to catch up. We are now conducting hearings twice monthly in order to divide the monthly caseload into 2 hearings. The responsibilities of the Appeals Committee include reviewing and evaluating member appeals for Community Patrol, Marine Patrol, and member discipline-related violations. The committee has recently recommended rule modifications and fine schedule changes to certain dog-related and gate entry violations that the board has adopted.
Thank you, Doug. Any particular questions or issues you'd like us to talk about today?
One of the issues that I believe I've discussed with you, I don't know if this is the right format. I don't know, are members of the community on this forum as well, or is it just the committee chair and board?
The community were invited.
So there are community members?
Yes.
All right. Well, the one issue I think we should take up in an executive session then.
Okay, can you let me just know what it is so I can write it down?
Pardon?
Could you let me know what it is and just in general so I can make a note of it?
Service providers.
Okay. Great, thank you, Doug. Who's next?
John Stelzner, Architectural Control Committee. We have currently 5 members and 1 prospective new, 3 primaries, and currently 2 alternates. We do have 1 member that's out right now. One of our primary members is out with cancer. He just finished chemo. I have another member that it's just come out of 3 weeks from the coronavirus. Other than that, the rest of us are all in good health. We do have one prospective new member with us. We're just waiting for board approval, which hopefully will be here in November. For staff, we have Natalie Torres. She's our secretary. And of course, we have a good coordination with Cheryl Mitchell. She's the senior manager at the planning compliance section. I think everyone knows our job. It's basically approving permits, applications, and pretty much it. We started when coronavirus shut down the state, went for about 3 weeks without a meeting, and then we started Zoom. We just had to because, well, people are at home. They realized that the things they wanted to do. They were sitting at home and permits started flowing in. I think our high last year was about 105 permits. We meet once a week on Thursday, starting at 7:30. We had about 105 last year just on permit applications. I think that was the peak. This year, with the way things are going, pretty much running around 80 or 90, but now about 2 weeks ago, we went down to about 60, and I think we have 53 this week. So there is a slowing down. People are starting to get caught up on things they want to do at home. And so things are progressing well. I should mention that Chris Poland is our board member that attends our meetings. I think he's found it pretty interesting. And that's probably all I really want to talk about. I would want to talk to the board, and I think if there are other community members on, or I'm okay with them hearing this. But I would like to ask the board to please consider most of the things that come to the board for appeals are CC&R violations, and so we've been pretty lucky. We don't average maybe 1 or 2 per month with the board overall. Basically, I think we have a good association with the board. With that said, I'll just pass it on to the next committee chairperson.
Hey, John, could you pull your camera down so we could see more than your hair?
Oh, I'm sorry. Actually, I'm kind of in a bad.
Go ahead. Who's next?
This is Kathy
My name
Farbank.
is
Okay.
Okay, Kathy,
And
go ahead.
I am chair for the senior center, and we have 9 members, and we have actually gotten 2 new members in the last few months, a new treasurer and a new secretary. Unfortunately, the senior center has been closed down since February. Operations has done a lot of updating there. It's been pretty nice. We've got a new floor in the entryway, painting all throughout, a little bit of new furniture. And the biggest issue that I have, as you can probably guess, is hoping that we can open up. The groups that meet there are small groups under 12 people, and it's card players and sewers, different people. So we're really hoping that we can start meeting. Of course, I know being in the highest tier, that's not real optimistic for it, but really hoping that we can get some activity because it's a place for people to meet and socialize. And that's pretty important these days. And I think that's all.
Okay. Thank you very
Hey,
much.
Chris,
Yeah.
This is Joe Watchley. You can't see me because
Hello, Joe.
can't get it. I cannot get into the end of this thing. I keep saying the host has another meeting in progress. And my wife, who does about 3 or 4 Zoom meetings a week, she's been working on it, and we can't get in, you know. But I can talk, but you're not going to be able to see me. And I've got Valerie Montgomery sitting here with me, who is the Green Committee chair. So you want me to go ahead and
Joe,
just talk?
Yeah, would you were on early on when I talked about what we're doing right now?
Yes,
Okay,
on the
great.
phone.
Why don't you go
On the
ahead and
phone.
that's fine. I understand. We miss seeing your bright face, but that's okay. We can get along. So go ahead.
Yeah, I know it's a problem, but all right, I'll go ahead and go through my thing, and then I'll let Valerie talk to the Green Committee, okay? Now, all right, this is a finance committee we're talking about, and we have 7 members and usually an alternate. Jeannie Odell is our liaison. Of course, she's the treasurer. And Susan Dahlwood is a person we really work with constantly as our controller. We have several important functions. One is the budget, and we've already started the budget for this year. And in fact, I've already gone through all the fees, and that will continue through January. Can you hear me okay? Chris?
Yeah, somebody's got their microphone turned on and we're getting a lot of background noise. Could y'all mute, please? And just turn your mic back on when you speak.
Okay.
There we go.
All right.
We got it.
That's
All right,
better. Okay. So we're working on
Eric, do you have the power to unmute Joe, or is he muting himself?
Gotta unmute myself first. Let's see here. I figure out which one he is.
to unmute. Okay, now I'm unmuted again.
Oh, they're good.
All right, so I'll go on from there. So anyway, through January, we'll be working on the POA budget to present it to the board in February and get approved in March. We also look at all the financials every month. So for instance, in October, at our October meeting this past week, last week, we reviewed the September financials and looked to see where we are as far as budget and where we're missing out, etc. And then that can be addressed by Susan and Jeannie if necessary. We also do a quarterly meeting with our investment advisor. We have a person who's telling us, and he's not touching our money, but he's telling us where we should put our money each month. And it goes in through swabs, so nobody's touching it. And we raised in the last, I would say we started with this company probably about 4 years ago, at the board and finance committee, if we recommended and they approved it, but they interviewed. And we went from getting about 0.001%, there's 3 O's there, which was about $50 on 5 million of our stuff interest, to now we're about 1.5%, 1.5, not 0.000. So it has increased, and we're very happy with the job that they're doing there. We just had we have a subcommittee that's working with the facility planning committee, 3 on each team, working on what projects that they want to do and that they can get approved, so that we know how much, as far as our reserves account, we need to increase or lay low on it for the year or whatever it is. We're also developing a 5-year plan on that. So in other words, we work with operations also as far as the reserve budget. And we have 3 main reserves. You got the road reserves, you got the repair and replacement reserves, which is the largest one. And then we have the CIP, Community Improvement Project, which is new projects. So for instance, say when we did the gate, that was a repair and replacement of an existing thing. But the pump station or the dog park that we recently built, those are all new projects. And so they come out of the CIP, which we usually fund for somewhere around $1 million, $1.2 million every year on that. So anyway, basically that's all I can tell you. You have any questions? Okay, no questions. I'll turn this thing over to Valerie and she can talk about the Green Committee.
Good afternoon. How are you?
Can you hear us?
Can you hear us?
Good, thank you.
Good.
Okay.
I can hear you.
I'm Valerie. I'm Valerie Montgomery, and I'm currently chair of the Green Committee. I've been on the committee since 2006, and we have 7 members. 4 of them are appointed members by the POA, and we have 1 representative from the TWG, 1 from the Women's Club, and 1 from the Men's Golf Club. Our staff liaison is Steve Schneider and the entire operations office, and they're really great to work with. And Joe Comation is our board liaison. We meet the second Tuesday of each month in the Magnolia Room, and we would love to have homeowners come to our meetings and give us some of their ideas if they'd like to. The revision of our charter, currently, the recent revision of our charter has given our committee the opportunity to add an alternate member, and we're working on that now. Current projects, 2 of our Green Committee projects have just reached the RFP phase, the irrigation system replacement and the golf course maintenance contract. A major change in the contract was to include the drought tolerant maintenance in the maintenance contract instead of having operations be responsible for it. And that was something that was approved by operations and our then board liaison, Chris Poland. And we were very happy to oblige. In February, the committee completed an analysis of the golf course reserve study. We were able to make some corrections and identified some errors. And some of the errors were missing items in the reserve study. Just a sampling of that: the individual hole monuments on each tee, the vehicle bridge and road leading to the maintenance yard, the practice putting green, the street clock at the putting green, the driving range, and the benches on the golf course. None of those were included in the reserve study. Steve Liebring and I spoke about this analysis that we did, and he asked for a copy of our report, and he has it, and that's information that he can use in his committee. One of the things came out of the reserve study analysis was the integrity of our walking and driving bridges. We have 4 of them, 2 walking and 2 driving bridges. In August, just one second. In August of this year, the Green Committee submitted a recommendation that all of our bridges be inspected by a structural engineer. That project is still pending. A project recently completed was the refurbishment of the lake between the number 12 tee and the number 13 green. With the addition of the liner of the lake, there should be no more leaking of water, which should be a significant savings to the POA. We have small projects too, the replacement of a pine tree that was at the edge of the lake. The roots were growing right into the lake, right up to the edge. And if this tree had not been removed, it was just a matter of time before the roots would puncture the new lake liner and we'd start leaking again. So the tree was removed, and we are very cautious and very unlikely to recommend that a tree be removed unless it's dead or unless there's some other reason that it might be infected. But we're very reluctant to do any removal of the trees. And we have about 900 trees on the golf course. In the spring, a Chinese elm will be planted kind of in the same vicinity, but not as close to the edge of the lake as the pine tree was. We haven't talked much about it, but there's been some small conversations about a butterfly habitat on the golf course. We would be planting milkweed, and that's what the monarch butterflies lay their eggs on, are those leaves. And we also have been working with Pat in the pro shop to help us enforce some of the rules on the golf course, such as no driving on the 3 pars, the pace of play, golfers jumping onto the course in the afternoons and not checking in at the pro shop, and having friendlier tires on the golf carts because they're probably the worst enemy of the grass on the golf course. And that's about what we're doing.
Thank you, Valerie. Are there any particular issues you'd like us to consider?
Not at present. I mean, we've because of COVID, we've not been able to meet as much as we'd like to on our monthly basis. So we haven't really come up with any projects, but we're looking forward to the irrigation and the maintenance contract, and those are a couple of big opportunities for us.
That's great. Thank you very much. So
This is
Alex,
Harold
you wanna talk about
Larson.
the rec committee?
Pardon?
Harold Larson.
Harold
Excuse me,
Larson.
Yes?
sir.
Oh.
Yes.
Can I get in?
Yeah, Harold, we're in the middle of introductions right now by the committee chairs. Are you a committee
Yeah,
chair?
I'm a committee chair.
Okay, which one?
Canadian League Association of Men. You're not considering that
That's a
then?
club. Harold?
Yeah, it's a
Harold,
club.
That's a club. We had a club meeting back in September. This is a meeting
I
of
know
our
we did.
committee chairs.
Yeah, I know we did. And I thought there was going to be a continuation of the workshop tonight.
No, it's not. You're free to stay online, but we're having a conversation with our committee chairs right now.
No, I've got to go. I've got another Zoom with the Veterans Committee. So I'll leave and
Okay.
well, thank you very much.
Thanks, Harry.
Okay, Harold, thank you.
Goodbye.
So I was trying to call on Alex. Alex, you want to talk about the rec committee?
Thanks, thanks, Chris. Yeah, so I think most of you guys know me. My name's Alex Cook. I think I've been on the rec committee for 8+ years, chair for the last 5 years, 4 or 5 years now. The committee consists of 10 people. Kind of really what makes it 10 people, it's I think probably one of the largest committees, but it also ranges from a wide range of people. We have representation from the senior work group. We have representation from the Bass Club, water sports, parents, young parents with young kids. So we try to take a lot of information from different people. So we're touching base on all sorts of different subjects. Our committee liaisons, we pretty much have 2. We have Steve Schneider and Carrie Pratt. But the committee itself works on both facilities and activities. So anything activities comes through us. And anything to do with the parks, that includes golf field, that includes, outrigger, anything that needs to be, rules or repair, replacement, things that need to be upgraded, things to look at. With having 10 people on the committee, our job is to make sure we're eyes and ears of what's going on so we can help report back to the POA on things that need to be replaced. Equestrian Center falls into our category also. Beaches, lake, and the pool. So outside of any major projects that are being done at those facilities, we are involved on the day-to-day operations and making sure everything is okay, or if we see anything that's wrong. I don't know if I have any more to say to that. Any questions, Chris?
Any particular issues you'd like to have us consider?
No, I think that the staff itself is very reactive to what we see and what's going on. So everything is getting done. Some of their recent projects are things we've recommended. You know, we recommended to the board. The Bass Club came to us and recommended, wanted a fish weighing station at Holiday Arbor. So when they do their bass tournaments, it's just an example of something, but they would have somewhere to weigh their fish that's close to the water versus carrying them up top up to where the snack bar is, and the fish take a lot of stress to do that. So simple little things like that come to play for us. And so it's a great committee. I enjoy it.
So thank you very much. I don't think you mentioned that Tom Nathan is your board liaison.
Oh, sorry, Tom. Tom Nathan is my board liaison. Thank you, guys.
Good job.
Okay. Okay, moving on. Let's see, Steve Libri, you have a couple committees to talk to us about, I think.
I do. Which one do you want to hear about first? I'll do the facilities. Okay. So
Yeah.
Joe, Valerie, and Alex covered most of my report, so I won't bore you with all the details of those. But facilities is in charge of reviewing all the POA assets and facilities, which is roads, buildings, drains, fences, equipment, you know, everything that we own. We do the long-range plan. We preserve these assets as best we can. And we also are involved heavily in helping prepare scopes of work for new projects that are coming up. We're a 9-person committee. We have 7 people with 2 alternates, all have a variety of backgrounds, but mostly in engineering, construction, real estate, contract management, finance, etc. Our committee liaison is Steve Schneider. Our board liaison is Jeannie. And I've been on this committee since the early 1980s. Current tasks that we're reviewing right now is the 5-year reserve plan, the 5-year CIP projects, and various traffic issues. And that's my report, and I'll be happy to answer any other questions you have.
Okay. Any issues? Ask everybody, any issues? They're not going the way you want.
Just stay focused on the 5-year plan. You guys are doing a great job. We appreciate it.
Okay. Thank you. You want to talk about the dredge committee?
Yeah, well, the dredge committee is in charge of overseeing the lake and sediment issues that we experience. We are here to help explore strategies and opportunities for helping reduce that sediment that's incoming and improve the water quality, hopefully at the same time. We're a 4 to 5 person committee, varies at times of the year. Eric and Steve are our staff liaisons. You're our board liaison, and I've been on that committee since its inception 4 or 5 years ago. Our current task is that we haven't met in the last 18 months, and we're kind of waiting to get an update here on where we are, where we're headed, and how we can help get us to that point. So we'd love to have a kind of a gathering, either by Zoom or in presence, and kind of go over where we are and what our next steps are that we want to do with the dredge. Oh, by the way, we worked with Finance Committee also, and we have a line item in the budget for you guys to approve also to start funding any sort of potential assistance that we might be required to do in a dredge application or dredge engineering or dredge project of any sort like that. So we're planning ahead for that.
Okay, excellent. Thank you very much, Steve. Yes, I am hoping that there's going to be an update and a meeting of that committee in the near future, certainly before the end of the term of this board. we're working on that.
Right,
okay, Joe Grosso or the Fiesta Day committee, are they represented?
Yeah, I was able to call in slightly frustrated. I've been trying this for a half hour, and I don't know what the problem here is with my computer.
Okay, so do you want to give us a little rundown on the Fiesta committee?
So the Fiesta Day committee.
Plans?
I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead. You're okay.
So the Fiesta Day committee is made up of approximately 9 volunteers and 3 to 4 POA members, as well as 1 representative from the Canyon Lake Board. Our meeting takes place generally once or twice a month, almost the entire year at this point, due to the increased volume of participants that we've had over the last several years. The purpose for the committee, obviously, is to assist the POA in the organization and execution of Fiesta Day that takes place on a Saturday, the weekend of Memorial Day. Several of us on the committee have been volunteering now for close to 20 some odd years. One of our main goals for the Fiesta Day committee is to sell booth space and acquire donations from various businesses in the local area and some outside of our local area to pay for all forms of entertainment, such as activities, bands, other forms of entertainment like face painters, balloon artists, people that walk around on stilt walkers, magicians, petting zoos, things of that nature. Some of our biggest challenges for the Fiesta Day committee is the new requirements imposed upon us by CAL FIRE. It seems like every year within the last 2 to 3 years, there's been some heavy-handed requirements imposed on us by CAL FIRE that we usually don't get the information on until the week of our event. Thus, the committee tends to scramble that time of year, the week prior to the event, to try and make those things come to fruition. And we're not always successful in meeting those requirements. So in a sense, what happens is CAL FIRE comes out and performs an inspection the day of, and they file a report and reference any of the things that we were non-compliant with so that we can work on it the following year. Obviously, unfortunately, this year, because of COVID, we had to cancel our event. I don't believe Fiesta Day's ever been canceled in the 40 plus years in its history. And hopefully things will change moving forward and we can have a successful event next year. The one good thing that came out of this year is all the pre-planning is done. We pretty much know the theme. We have a logo. We just have to re-solidify our deposits and bookings with the forms of entertainment that we chose. We already have a grand marshal that will carry over into next year. Other than that, we seem to be okay. We're always looking for volunteers. For those of you that have called in or are participating on this Zoom meeting, feel free to come to our meetings. They're usually referenced in our Canyon Lake POA news and or on the website. And we also have a Fiesta Day committee website that's now available to the public. Does anybody have any questions?
Joe? Okay, do we have anybody from the Estates Committee?
Corey, I think you're on.
Yes, I'm here. Sorry about that. Let's see here. So the Estates Committee meets every other month on the third Thursday of the month. I am the staff liaison, and Jim Birmingham is the board liaison. Our chairperson is Dave Goley. He's been serving since December of 2016. Typically, agendas are light. The biggest topic right now is taking over the streets of Black Horse and Sorrel, which we discussed at the last board meeting. But yeah, I don't think there's any major issues. Typical agendas revolve around minor maintenance issues. We've done some landscaping upgrades at the Big T and the Skylink gates. So that project is now complete. Yeah, that's pretty much it.
Okay, thanks a lot, Corey. Is anybody I missed? Okay, now what we'd like to do is to move on and have a brief look at the committee guidelines and policy procedures with a focus on the things that we have changed. I hope you've all actually had a chance to look through these and you're working with them since we made those changes. But Lynn, do you want to go through that for us, please?
Yes, sir. I'll share my screen. Sorry, I'm trying to share it here. Okay, it's not letting me share. Harmony, did you say you made me a co-host so I could share? Oh, let me start my video. Maybe that's why. Sorry.
You're a co-host. Let me try to make it accessible. 1 second here.
Okay.
Is it letting you now, Lynn?
Well, it's only letting me share this virtual meeting screen. Okay. Trying to share the committee guidelines. My apologies. Not letting me. Oh, there we go. Okay. See if that works. Okay, can you guys see that?
Yes, we can.
Yes.
Okay. So this is actually the most current version. I did not pull up the red line version, but I thought what I could do, Chris, is kind of go through some of the big items on here. So we went over the list of standing committees, which I believe we had everybody present except for the Estates Committee today. This pretty standard discussion about which ones are the standing committees that are regular reoccurring meetings. And then we have our dredge ad hoc committee, which Steve had mentioned has not met for a bit. And then we have our work groups, which are the senior work group and the Tuesday work group. So members, this is something that we did change recently. Members of the committee, for a long time, it had been prime and associate members. One of the current changes we made was to add sub-associates to be allowed to be members on committees. One thing that's come up is we have had other members, such as leases, that have requested to be on committees over the years. So this is kind of an item that comes up for discussion occasionally. The liaison, we did not make any changes to this year, other than the direction of going through the board liaison to the staff and committee. It was just more of a direction. Ex officio members, staff liaisons, technically the president and the GM are appointed, and then other staff liaisons and board members have been designated as liaisons to the committee. So the employees of committees was another area that we did change recently. We changed the language to say employees shall serve as an ex officio capacity to provide current status information. Staff is not expected to provide administrative support without prior approval of the general manager. So we do recognize that there is assistance from staff. It's just that we were trying to direct it appropriately. This had come up with ACC. We know we actually have staff supporting taking notes because of the tasks assigned there, so that's slightly different. Another area that comes up from time to time is the chairperson role. So technically the chairperson is to be appointed for 2 years and then can be reappointed for an additional 2 years. However, the board can extend the term on a case-by-case basis. This does come up from time to time for some of our chairpersons. They seem to be the chair forever, and some of them may or may not want to be. But we've kind of left the language in here as approved on a case-by-case because you know that this is an extra duty to be that position. Secretary, we did not make any changes this year. Subcommittees, the board did make some changes to the subcommittee section that we would allow. So the committee itself can appoint members of the committee to be on a subcommittee, or at the discretion of the board and the chairperson, they can appoint additional persons to be on a subcommittee for a specific task. They just have to sign the confidentiality agreement was a requirement that was added this year. Alternate committee members. So this one is something that we've also seen a lot of change in. A lot of committees have elected to request alternates on their committees. So we didn't change the language, but we have seen a rise in alternate members. Something that has come up, I think, not necessarily because of COVID, but maybe the last couple of years, is attendance. Some of the committees do have trouble making quorum, or they just have members that are not attending. So I think some of them have elected to have alternate members. However, attendance, I believe in some committees still sometimes they're not necessarily having all the attendance. That might be a good question to inquire about. We had talked about possibly changing that to add an item on here about attendance, but we haven't made any recommendations yet on our discussion. Eligibility. So when I was going through this, I noticed that we did not change it to include, it says all prime and associate members shall be appointed. We need to add the language on sub-associates. So my apologies, I did not change that last time. And that members have to be in good standing. That is still a requirement. So we check those two things when a member submits an application. Committee term limits are still on a 1-year renewal. We just reappointed everyone in October. And then termination of service and resignations, that stayed the same. All right, I know everybody's seen this, so I'm trying to go through it kind of quickly. The committee charters designate what the committee's roles and responsibilities are. We did update all the charters, but we did not make specific changes to this section of the policy. Manner of operation has stayed the same. The meetings, we've left that the same this year. So all meetings technically are open except for executive session, and generally executive session includes items of member discipline or personnel discussion or potential litigation or legal conversation, and that's when we have to close the meeting to the members for attendance. So when I talked about attending quorum, I don't know that all the committees are or not having issues with quorum right now. I think having the virtual has helped. But when we were meeting in person, board requests, reporting, conflict of interest, and dissolution of a committee, we did not make any changes this year. I don't know if you wanted to talk about this committee recommendation now or kind of towards the end, Chris, about committee recommendations to the board. Okay, so that's kind of the overview.
Let's wait until you get to.
Okay. So the big items. Go ahead.
Go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say the big items that membership, who's eligible, maintaining the rosters, and attendance or quorum.
Okay, well, before we talk about that, I just wanted to just say one thing about the committee liaisons. In my mind, we've really strengthened and are depending on our board liaisons to be a designated communication link between the board and the committee back to the board in open session. And as you know, what we've been doing the last few months is having each of the designated liaisons reporting out briefly on the activities of the committee. So I wanted to make sure, again, in trying to make sure that we have a constant flow of information, both in terms of requests and report outs of what's going on. We want to do that through our board liaisons. Are there any questions or concerns about the policies as we now have them? And after we get done with that, then Lynn will go back and have a conversation about those other two items.
Okay. Do you want me to stop sharing the screen or wait to see if anyone has any questions?
Let's just see if I have any questions. You'll have to unmute yourself if you're. Okay, so as far as those, I'm sure that we don't have any questions from any of our committee chairs. As far as the two issues go, you want to go back over those again, Lynn, and we'll see if we have some suggestions about that.
Sure. So members and eligibility, that's kind of the two for that one. Right now, the policy that was changed recently added sub-associate members. We do get from time to time leasees that are requesting to be members of a committee since they are residents. So the current policy does not address that. It was prime and associate up until this year, where we added sub-associate. So there has been the request from members in the past. I don't know if the board wants to consider modifying that portion of the policy. We still held that they have to be members. Yes, sir.
Could you just remind us, prime associate, sub-associate, so everybody's on the same page in those categories, and then we're looking for your thoughts, committee chairs, about leasees. Go ahead, Lynn.
What the definition is of the prime and associate. So the owner, co-owner, spouse would be the prime associate. An associate member can also be a child under the age of 21. A sub-associate is a relative over the age of 21 that resides in the property. So they're all residents.
Okay.
Just the classification, yes, sir.
Okay. Okay, so thoughts on including leasees? Go ahead.
Chris, could I make a comment on this particular subject? And you mentioned leasees there. We have a person on the Green Committee who is a representative of the Women's Golf Club. She's owned a number of houses here previously and had to sell her last house as she and her husband got divorced a few years ago. She stayed here. She's a renter here. Or a leasee. She is an active realtor in Canyon Lake. And we just found out or realized the problem that she's not a prime or associate member, which means we're going to have to remove her from the Green Committee and have them send us another person from the Women's Club. And her brother lives here and owns a house and was in charge of the TWG and is still on the TWG committee. And it seems like if we have a leasee that's been renting here for a while, that they should be able to be on a committee if they're qualified. So that's the only comments that I have on that.
I might add too, as chairman of the Green Committee, she's a very valuable member. She takes the information that we have in the Green Committees and reports back to our Women's Golf Club at the board meetings. She takes the concerns of our members, things that they find out on the golf course that need to be attended to. She brings those back to the Green Committee, and it's really a shame that we're going to lose her because she doesn't own a home.
That's obviously part of the reason that we're having this conversation, and I don't want to focus on her situation. Let me just ask, Lynn, do you feel like the board has the discretion to make exceptions to these rules, or do you think our hands are pretty much tied?
In regards to following the policy, this is a board approved policy, so if the board wanted to modify that to allow leasees, yes, sir.
Well, the thing I'm wondering is if what I'm asking is, do we need to modify the policy?
The way it's written,
we have general discretion?
The way it's written, it doesn't say on a case by case. I think originally the intent was that the members, because the members themselves, the prime and associate, being in good standing, making them eligible, but that would be at the board's discretion if they wanted to modify that, yes, sir, or make the exception. It's our policy, but modify. Yes, sir.
Okay, so we could if we wanted to, we could modify our policy to include leases under special consideration. We'd have to figure out how to say that. Any other thoughts from other chairmen about including leases on your committees?
Yeah, Chris, this is Joe Grosso. You know, at one time, there was a policy that was written to include myself and my wife. We were in between owning property in Canyon Lake and not owning property in Canyon Lake. And Kathy Barnes, when she was a POA member, had written the policy to allow my wife and myself to be volunteers on the committee for Fiesta Day. This was a number of years ago, probably in the neighborhood of 18 plus years ago. But what it did was it allowed us as non-residents to actually serve as committee members. We volunteered our time. We had a vested interest in the Fiesta Day event because of the line of business that we were in. And in all honesty, just like our clubs, there's a certain percentage of membership that is allowed to be a participant in a sanctioned club, and yet they don't have to be a resident of Canyon Lake. I mean, my thought is this is a volunteer type position, and we don't get a lot of volunteers, even from our own residents. It makes it difficult sometimes to operate as a committee and make decisions and vote on motions so that we can move forward as a committee to be progressive in what it is we're trying to accomplish if we don't have the number of volunteers needed to meet quorum. And this is the problem that we've had for a number of years with a lot of our committees over the years. I think we need to, like you might be suggesting, at least write in there so that there is an open window of opportunity for the board to use their discretionary decision to allow something of this to happen, whether you're a resident or not, or a leasee or not, to be an active participant on a committee. Just my thought.
Okay. Appreciate that, Joe. Someone else, especially if someone is concerned about this.
Chris Boland, Alex Cook.
Yes, Alex.
I'm concerned with it just for the point is these people don't get a vote for anything else in the POA. If my understanding, they're not allowed to go to POA meetings, or general meetings. So to allow that all of a sudden that they can be on committees and help, you know, have a vote to change something within or a recommendation for the most part. It seems a little weird because it is a property owners association committee. That's my one concern with that. My second thing with this under members, in the past, the board has put people on my committee that were never recommended by the committee, never interviewed. I would like to see something in there that states that the board, before they recommend somebody or appoints them to the committee, that the committee has a chance to interview them, vet them, because, you know, all of a sudden you have people that maybe don't fit or have the same focus, or somebody wants to get a friend on the committee. And in the past, it's just not worked very well.
Okay, appreciate the suggestion. Write it down. Other comments?
Chris?
Yeah.
I concur with what Alex saying is I think there are people in this community who may be leasees that have special expertises that can contribute to committee meetings, but I don't think they should have the power to sway the vote or anything of that nature in terms of how we spend our money or anything like that. I think, you know, a subcommittee is a perfect example of how you might be able to bring someone like that in on to provide their expertise, but I don't think they should be a long-standing voting member type of thing that's going to sway policy or financial type of things. And you as the board have discretion, of course, to vet anyone. So if anyone is not performing, that's another feature that you have to, you can remove someone at any time, you know.
Now that you've just mentioned that, I'll say, you know, the board really doesn't have the kind of view, or doesn't seem to historically have the willingness to take non-participating members off committees. So if I could speak for myself, I really am depending on you as the chair, folks, to let us know who's not participating, so that we can make those kind of adjustments. Other thoughts about this? This is a great conversation about leasees being committee members.
Yeah, Chris, I'll chime in too. I think sort of to mirror the comments of Alex and Steve, you know, we have members who are stakeholders, the ones who pay dues, the ones who are responsible for whatever actions are, you know, going to be borne upon their tract and lot for the members that come in here. They're the ones who place the votes for the things that happen in this community. And just like, you know, as being a director, you know, you can only be a director if you're a property owner in here. I see this as, you know, just one step shy of offering the same idea that lessees should be allowed to be directors. And I think the concept that the member, the responsible party, the one who's invested in this community making decisions is a good one. And there's nothing to say that lessees and resident members and those that don't qualify are unable to be volunteers. You know, they can still participate in the volunteering efforts of those committees. They just won't be able to be a part of them as a voting member, which I think is appropriate.
Great, thank you, Tom. Other thoughts? Okay, we're just going to take all that into consideration. Nothing's changing, of course. We have to change the policy to do that. You know how that process goes. But we'll take that under consideration. Lynn, the other issue, please. If you'd like to reintroduce that again.
Oh, yes. So the other issue was attendance. So it's not even actually on here. I was just kind of going to the section on quorum. So I'm not entirely sure, like I said, how much of an issue it is right today, but I know some of the committees do at times have trouble getting enough attendance, and then they can or cannot make quorum based on that, which then could delay a committee meeting or action discussion item being held. And so one of the questions was, is our board meetings have an attendance requirement in the policy? Do we want to consider having an attendance requirement for committee members? If we have a member that's non-participatory or they're just kind of coming when it's convenient, is that affecting the committee as a whole? So should we consider adding something in regards to attendance? If you miss X number of meetings, would you become an alternate? Would you be removed? Is it a non-issue? So that was kind of another suggestion.
Okay, so I think this is a really interesting idea. I'm really interested in what the chairmen have to say. For instance, if someone misses 2 meetings in a row, then you have the ability, or they automatically become an alternate, and whoever one of your alternates is that's attending steps up and becomes the voting member. What are your thoughts?
Chris, Joe Ashley. My thought on this is we shouldn't have a flat thing of 2 meetings or something in a row, but it's up to the committee chairman to determine if they think that this person's just lackadaisical and not coming, or they have work problems or something. I know I would talk to them and ask them to resign so we can put somebody else on. And if they refuse to resign, then I would go to the board and ask the board to remove them. And I think that would solve the problem. I mean, you may have somebody that goes to Europe for 3 months, and it doesn't happen every year, but he may go to Europe or she, and or they got a sick parent that they're taking care of that's about to die. So I think there could be a lot of reasons why they could miss some, but the way it was explained here was that it's just lackadaisical and I'll go when I feel like it. That's up to the committee chairman to make that decision. Now he can talk to the rest of the committee about it, but that's his decision or their decision to make.
Okay, thank you, Joe. Someone else.
I'm gonna chime in again, but this goes back a few years. And Alex, you can probably expand upon it if we need. But you know, there are some people that join committees and then they don't go to committee meetings. Not necessarily because of work. You know, in some cases it is, but I think if I'm remembering right, you know, years ago there was a rec committee member that was in the service and they were deployed. You know, and they weren't going to be around for 18 months or 2 years, and yet their name rode on this committee list. And to me, that just seems like it's a waste of a position to be putting somebody in a committee and having them be considered part of the quorum when you know they're never going to be there. And we have to have a way to be able to say, whether it's, you know, 2 meetings, 5 meetings, or whatever, just some frequency that says that if you've committed to be a part of this committee for the 1 year period, that you will be there and you'll, you know, try to be there for meetings. And, you know, we all understand things in life get in the way, and you know, whether it be sickness or work or something that might keep people away, there may come a time when we have to say it's time to step back and let somebody else be an active participant, so that we don't just keep holding a spot open and then have that spot not attended by a committee person, you know, month after month.
Okay, Todd, thank you. Someone else?
Chris, Alex Cook.
Go ahead.
I think that,
yeah,
on the same premise of what Tom just said, I think it should be left up to the committee itself and the committee chair to make that decision. I mean, to put a hard number on would be very difficult, because definitely life gets in the way and things change and so forth. So somebody can't make it, as long as they're communicating and they're participating and they're still communicating with the chair and staff, but they maybe can't make 3 months in a row of meetings. I don't think it's a reason to just, you know, somebody just like, hey, we can vote him off or make him a alternate or something like that. I think it really becomes the committee itself can, if they need to do that, make it an action, can make that recommendation to the board. In the case that Tom was talking about, that's exactly what we did. You know, he stopped responding to emails. We couldn't figure out what he was doing. He originally said he was going to be gone 6 weeks. 6 weeks became, you know, months, and we couldn't get a hold of him on email. And so we just made the recommendation and removed him. We never heard from the guy again in any capacity. So I just think it's up to the committee to make that decision, not the board.
Okay. Thank you. Other thoughts?
Yeah, Chris, this is Joe Grosso again. I would have to concur with both Alex and Tom. I think it should be left up to the committee to make that decision. I'm wondering whether or not a committee member that's unable to attend a meeting the same day as a meeting, if they can't weigh in a decision on how they would have voted while in attendance at that meeting via email or call in to the chair, so that the committee can move forward on a decision-making situation. Is that something that would not fly, or is that something that's possibly can be looked at?
All suggestions can be looked at, Joe. I think that's a good suggestion. There's pluses and minuses, but I think that's, I wrote it down. I think that's a good thing to say. I mean, we've all learned during this COVID time that connecting remotely is a whole lot simpler to do at the last minute, or even when other things in life get in the way, to jump in for an hour or two than it was to have to be right there at the place and join the committee meeting. So yeah, I think that's something that we should take into consideration.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, I think it would be kind of hard too, in the sense what you're talking about, Joe, because you know, at a committee meeting, you know, first you have a quorum of the members there, but you have a motion and a second before you have a vote. So I don't know how you could have a guy giving you a vote before they've even heard the motion or the second.
That's true.
Yeah, but at the same time, if the committees are in the process of deliberating, and it's going to be over a couple of meetings, it wouldn't hurt if someone missed the meeting that they would actively engage by email before the meeting, the discussion. You're exactly right about voting, but I think there's some room there. You know, I believe the reason this came up is because we're all friendly people, and we've all got folks that we've worked with for years. I don't speak that much about this because I haven't been here that long, but there's a real reluctance to try and to move somebody out of the way or move somebody off because they really are not engaging. and we were looking to see if there was some bit of rule that we needed to make that easier for the chairman or for the committee. But maybe that's not the case. I don't know. Other thoughts?
Chris, this is Joe Weishley. I think that, like you just said, the chairman of the committee is somebody that's taken responsibility for things, and it's up to them. And again, they can talk to the rest of the committee when this person's not showing up, and talk to them and say, "What do you think?" And probably they'll all agree that he should be or she should be removed. And everybody that's commented on this has said, let the committee decide, the rest of the committee or the chair, to make those decisions rather than a hard and fast 2 months or 3 months, missing.
And my 2 months was just to stimulate this kind of conversation. Is there anybody who would like to speak on behalf? Is there anyone who would like to speak on behalf of having a hard and fast rule?
No.
I'm going to take silence as the no. I appreciate your vote. Thank you. I'd like to now move on to the committee charters. We made changes to the charters. They were all delivered to you folks. You guys are, I think, all operated under them. Quite frankly, I'm very pleased to hear the report outs about everything that's going on with your committee. So I really don't have an issue here. The question is there anything in the committee charters, either yours or the other charters, that I hope you had a chance to review that you'd like to talk about? Speak right up.
The Architectural Control Committee, this is John Stelzner. The Architectural Control Committee is, I reviewed our charter and I didn't see too much difference. There's a little typo error on it, on the 4th line, I believe it was. But I didn't see any big changes. I was going to say something about the way that the ACC handles members. When we have a prospective new member, I actually send out a page. I use a template that I created a couple years ago, and I tailor it specifically for the individuals. Most individuals that get on this committee, it's a difficult committee to be on because it's so time consuming. We only have 3 primary members, and we ask the individual to join us. There's a drive around and there's a meeting, but the drive around, we get a chance to know them. And after about a month of going to our meetings, they kind of have a good handle on what we do. And I've never seen anybody that really, in the time that I've been here, and I was an alternate for years, never really saw anybody that never had a problem with. Other people have moved on, they've gone to other committees, and that's okay. We haven't had anybody that can participate to the fullest. We're so involved with a meeting every Thursday that the only time anybody ever takes off is if they're sick or they're on vacation, and we allow the individuals to do that. So it works out pretty well. And I want to thank the board for giving us 2 extra members, alternates. We're kind of restricted by the CC&Rs as to what we can have as far as primary, but I believe we've had good participation over the years, and I do appreciate everybody that has come on and on the committee and and worked on this. So with that being said, I just as far as the charter goes, I don't see any big changes, and it looks good to me. So I have no comments for our ACC.
Okay, thank you, John. Anyone else? Well, I'm glad to think we've got the charters just right, at least for this year. We'll see how that turns out with next year's board, but I appreciate that. As I said, my goal in all of this was to try to reinvigorate our committees and get a transfer of information and activity that was going on, that was done in a timely manner, that was facilitating the information that the board had to make its decisions. I am very sensitive to the fact that it's hard for 5 people elected, even though they all come from different directions, to fully understand all the issues that we're facing. And I personally look very much to the committees for timely and thoughtful information. And that timely part is really important. And I appreciate what you're doing. So we'll step past the committee charters. And are there any other member comments?
Excuse me, Mr. President.
Yes.
I just wanted to say bye to everybody. I need to run off to another meeting, so I didn't want to leave without saying goodbye, and thanks for the opportunity to listen.
Thank you, Jeannie. Appreciate you joining us as long as you can. She's off creating the Chamber of Commerce, which is going to make it better for all of us, right? Active people are active people, and I really appreciate that. Are there any other member comments or issues? Didn't hear a lot of issues, but things that you'd like to have followed up on.
We have no virtual hands raised.
Okay. Well, I certainly don't mind adjourning this meeting early. That's quite all right. I think we've got a good cross-section of information here, and I appreciate that. I appreciate all the directors joining us and hearing to this. Again, I really think that we're moving in a positive direction and trying to engage with our community and make sure that they understand, the community understands what we're doing. That's not to say that every night when I read Facebook, never contribute, but I read all the Facebook posts, and we certainly have plenty of people, maybe not plenty, but we have a handful of people out there compared to our 11,000 plus residents who always have lots of critical things to say, and that's fine. But at the same time, I'm very pleased that we're getting more information out to the community. I appreciate the committees reaching out. I would urge you all to take a fresh look at your membership. Alex Smith talked about this, so did Steve and others, but our committees really need to represent the cross-section of our community, and our demographics are changing. They do need to represent the group of people that are most oriented toward that particular activity. The Green Committee is not going to do a lot of good to have other folks on it besides golfers. That's just the way that has to be. But I encourage that. But I would like to see a nice cross-section in all of our committees. I think going forward this next year, I think you're going to see us be a little bit more specific about our request for continuing membership and continuing chairmanship, and I would look to the chairs and the committees to do some deep thinking about that as we go forward, so that we can, if you will, please, politely, step up our game and make sure that our committees have the good cross section of people that represent the changing demographics of our community. So with all of that, I'll say thank you very much. Appreciate you giving us part of your afternoon and early evening, and we'll be in touch. Good night.
Thank you, Chris.
Thank you very much, Chris.